But
Right,
Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the Liberty First Foundation Roundtable. Tonight we have a special guest with us, Mr. Chris Rose. Chris Rose is running for the U.S. Senate for the great state of West Virginia. He's going to join our panel tonight just to have a discussion about kind of what's going on in the United States and across the world. We're just going to have our general discussion, but make sure to join us next week when we will actually be having an interview with Chris Rose and talking about his positions on various issues and getting a background about his candidacy. So with that, welcome everybody. You will see that I'm joined tonight, besides Chris Rose, we've got our usual cohorts, Frank Johnson, co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation, and Michael Vasquez, the host of the No Sound Bites Allowed podcast. I learned how to talk one of these years.
one of them.
Well, you'd
By
think
the
with
way,
all the
folks-
practice that you've had, you might have mastered the art by now.
Yeah. And by the way, folks, just to let everyone know, I'm the one who's, if you saw the photo, the mention about today's show, I'm the one who screwed up the date with Chris. My fault. I apologize. But don't worry. We'll have a great show. We'll get to talk to him today and next week. So you're in luck.
Vass has been severely reprimanded. He's been admonished,
Again,
censured, and denied his daily portion of ice cream. If only we could do that in Washington.
there we go.
So welcome, Chris. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you guys for having me on. I'm happy to be here and I look forward to tonight's discussion.
All right, so Chris, let's just start off. Like I said, tonight is mostly an opportunity for us to get to know you. Give us a little bit of your background, who you are, what makes you tick. You know, we're not interested in policy positions or anything. We just want to get to know you as an individual.
Sure, absolutely. I'm a fourth generation West Virginia coal miner, sixth generation West Virginian. And obviously, you guys already said I'm running for United States Senate in West Virginia. But I'm a lifelong West Virginian, grew up in the southern coal fields of McDowell County, which at one time was the richest county in the entire nation. But today it's the poorest because of what's happened with the war on coal and what has turned into the war on American energy. It's really poverty stricken by what's been took away from them and they've been left behind and forgotten about. I had to relocate to stay employed during that war on coal. I started out as a general laborer, so, blue collar conservative. Started out working with my hands, as a general laborer inside the mines. Worked my way up into mine management. And as part of mine management, I was part of a team that managed hundreds of millions of dollars to keep this mine open that we worked at, despite the challenges that we were faced by the Obama administration's war on coal. And it shows that I have, a good proven track record of conservative fiscal conservatism with other people's money. Unlike career politicians that you see who just, they love spending other people's money because at the end of the day, they have no accountability. But I've already proved it out on Main Street. I'm a lifelong fisherman and hunter. I love the outdoors. Lifetime member of the NRA, member of Gunners of America, very pro Second Amendment. Member of the Tea Party movement. I was regional field director for the Tea Party starting in 2010 and helped, people like Ron Johnson, Mike Lee, Rand Paul get elected. And here in state, I was the first chair of the Bluefield State College Republicans. I've also helped many in-state candidates win state senate and House of Delegates, flipping our state from blue to red after 84 straight years of Democrat control. I'm happily married. Yesterday is my 10-year anniversary. My beautiful wife, Amber, is a registered nurse. That's my healthcare hero. So obviously, medical freedom is a very big deal to me, but we can dive into that in next week's show. But, just like I said, blue-collar conservative, salt of the earth, not a career politician, not a billionaire, like our founding fathers, just an everyday American who wants to step up and fight to save our country.
Well, congratulations, first and foremost, on 10 years of marital bliss. That's above any personal record you could have in the business world or the professional circles. Having a good, solid relationship and being married for that long a period of time, especially being a young man as yourself, in today's day and age, that's a hell of an achievement. So congratulations on what's your wife's name?
Amber.
My wife's name is Amber.
Amber. Okay. I'm a little slow and a little deaf, so sometimes I might not pick it up the first time. But
no, you're fine. But one neat little fact for you: the average marriage in the United States currently only lasts 8.2 years. So we definitely have a long way to go of fixing some of the cultural issues that have kind of got an array here the last couple of decades. I mean, 8.2 years is not that long of a time. We're
No,
already past that. So I tease my wife saying we're already doing better than the national average. But here's to 50, 60, or even 70 more, beautiful years together. But it's just sad to see that America's culture has got to the point where divorce rates are so high and the average marriage only lasts 8 years now.
Well,
It's a
we're in
shame that marriage
disposable
has to have
society.
an average.
I was just going to say, I know 5 years ago, the average was 7, no, 7.1. So we're doing the conservative movement. I'd like to credit it to that resurgence amongst some of the youth has bumped up the number. So that's the good thing to hear about that. The bad thing is we still see amongst minorities 70%, 72% of single parent households. We got a long way to go. But there is good news there. And you know what? Thank you, Chris, for being a great example of being young and maintaining a marriage, which, according to progressives today, doesn't exist or shouldn't exist if you believe in third wave feminism.
Now, you said you've been involved in you're a fourth generation coal miner?
Yes, sir, that's correct. I did the same thing that my father, grandfather, and grandfather did, and even third generation at the exact same coal company. And the next generation may not get to do it because of Washington getting in the way and picking winners and losers, which is very unconstitutional for them to be able to do so. Because what they're doing is they're using the EPA. They're bypassing Congress and using the EPA to create its own regulations without Congress, which is unconstitutional, to be able to make it to where our energy producers in this country can't produce energy. And it's crazy because if you look at it, America's energy producers, coal, oil, and gas, they all produce this energy cleaner than anywhere else in the rest of the world. But yet our people in Washington want to stop us from able to produce this energy, but buy it from other nations who, some quite frankly, don't even have emission standards at all. So it's just a double standard. It's very hypocritical, and it's sad to see because here in coal country, these people, they're not asking for a handout. They're asking for a free market to be able to compete and just be able to work hard and earn a living. And it's just sad to see it's been ripped away from them, from these elitist bureaucrats in Washington.
Well, the whole war on coal is not an environmental thing. It's a redistribution of wealth scheme. From America being a wealthy, what people perceive America as being a wealthy country, they never really take into consideration how much debt we have, how much unfunded liabilities that we still have, that we'll never be able to get out from under it, but they still view us as being a wealthy country. So what do they figure on doing? Well, all the other countries that produce coal, but they produce it in the dirtiest way possible. Let's buy it from them so we could ship our funds over there. It's the same thing like taxing the rich here, for whatever reason. It's always, wealth distribution, but that's just happens to be a national scale of the same model. America needs to be punished for our good fortune.
Well, Frank, remember, this is part of Obama's necessarily skyrocketing energy costs. We have to do this. It's a progressive thing to do. And hell, let's remember that this week they doubled down. It's not just that we need to necessarily skyrocket our energy costs, because shame on us for being a successful nation. But as Kamala Harris said, we have to depopulate the planet for climate change. This is a story that got killed last week. Got killed in the news media. No one hears this anymore. We moved on to other stories.
Well, she just misspoke.
She didn't misspeak. It went through 5. She had to have a speechwriter. It had to go through the White House and its transcription service. She read the speech. She made the speech. It had to go to the guy who put it on the prompter for her. There are at least 5 levels of people who read this, said, yep, sounds great to me. No problem whatsoever. And it wasn't until someone complained and said, wait a minute, she just said she wants to commit genocide, that this is part of the climate change movement and necessarily skyrocketing our energy prices. And they were all fine with that until someone said, I don't want you to kill grandma. No, I'm not happy about that. This is crazy that this is happening in America right now.
But
No, it really is. It's real disgusting because you see that these people, and there's a little bit of lag there. Sorry, I didn't mean to overstep you
Don't
there.
worry
I'll
about
say
it.
this and I'll let you talk. But you see that this is the same people that get more radical and more aggressive with the plan to, depopulate the earth, shove people closer to these big cities, and try to have more governmental control. That's not conspiracy theory. That's a fact, because these are the same people who also want you to eat bugs and take away your right to eat beef, have cattle, and even have your own electric grid. They want you to be able. They don't even want you to be able to have your own self-sustaining electric grid. Like all these states don't tie into a national grid. They want to have their own, and they're trying to even pass laws to do away with that and force them into one that the national government can control through regulatory agencies like PJM and et cetera. They want to take away any sense of freedom and individualism and liberty that you have. And they just keep getting more radical and open about it. They're saying the quiet stuff out loud now. You just hit the nail on the head with that, because these are the same people, like I said, they try to say that we were all going to die if we didn't get rid of the cows. It's because of the gas of the cow exhausted out of its rear end, out of its derriere, if you will. And it's just laughable that these people push these policies. It's laughable, but also scary, because these are, she's a heartbeat away from the desk of Resolute folks, and it's just scary that someone that close to that desk is saying these kinds of things out loud.
Well, it's scary that the guy sitting behind the desk says the things that he says.
Yeah, but I can make him say whatever he wants if you give me access to that prompter. Actually, we can fundraise a lot of money off of this. If we get access to that teleprompter, we could really have a pay-per-view where people pay whatever to have us type in something to a teleprompter. We can make Joe Biden say whatever we want. We can actually have a blast with that.
Yeah. Just so people know, I want you to see, this is the link. This is coming from Newsweek, okay? Ewan Palmer is the guy who wrote about this, 715. And you can see it right here. They try and excuse it. And this is, people, when you hear about misinformation, this is the misinformation. Remember, first thing he says, it's a gaffe. How can you say it's a gaffe? She said it. He goes on to say that this was a mistake, that she made a mistake. She accidentally described a plan. He's not in her brain. The editors at Newsweek don't know what. There's 5 levels of people who approved every single word she said. And you can't tell me she was trying to say pollution instead of population. That's the correction they made. Oh, she meant to say pollution. Pollution doesn't sound like population. If you go into your text messaging, you go into your, I don't know, what is that? Any of the word correction programs, you're never going to get the word pollution when you start typing in population. This is how they try and cover this. It was an accident. It was a gaffe. She meant to say something. It was a typo. They're lying. This is covering up the reality. They say, oh, it's not. She isn't talking about a plan. Her exact quote is, when we invest in clean energy and electric vehicles and reduce population, more of our children can breathe clean air and drink water. She said this at Copen University, talking about the plan for clean energy, climate change. That's a plan. The very statement she made is a plan. They are lying to the American people, and we should be terrified, because not only is it unconstitutional, it's immoral. My opinion.
Well, it's also part of the UN agenda to, for the depopulation. That's been one of the earmark goals, was to. I mean, if we went back and look at the now destroyed Georgia Guidestones, they stipulated that the world population should not exceed 500 million people.
What? 500 million people?
500 million. That's what was engraved on the Georgia Guidestones. Those markers that nobody knew how they got where they were.
And and how they got destroyed.
Yeah, somebody.
Excuse me for just a second. Let me address. Dan, I see you have a lot of questions up here for Chris Rose. Next week's going to be our interview with him. This week we're just talking about what's going on across the world and across the country. So he's a panelist tonight. Next week we'll be talking to him as a candidate.
Well, just so Chris knows, Jan in the comments section, Jan Raines is one of our usual panelists, and she happens to be a resident of your home state. So she's extremely passionate about a lot of the issues, and I'm sure she's got a lot of questions for you. She's going to ask a lot of questions that are both going to be from the right point of view, as well as playing devil's advocate and asking questions from the left point of view. but right now I get she's a little enthusiastic.
I would like to respond to one comment from her, and I won't take up too much time. Jan, if you turn into Grant Stinchfield, I'm doing a shameless plug here. This upcoming Monday at 7 p.m., I'm going to be on Stinchfield tonight to talk about your very last comment at 9:14 there, how to protect the children from the TQIA plus movement, because I'm actually calling on Jim Justice not to campaign on parental rights and child protection. You're a governor. You have the position and authority to address it now. So quit campaigning on it, quit raising money on it. Let's put the primary issues going head to head aside and work together to protect the children in our schools. And I'm calling on him to do that because I've already provided him the evidence. And he claimed that he was outraged, Jan, but he's failed to do anything about it. So I'm going a nationwide media tour demanding that we put the primary politics aside. Let's come together and let's call a special session to address it now. Why wait to your senator, Justice, if you win, to address these issues when you're already governor, Justice, and can address it now? So, Jan, look out for that, and I look forward to hearing from you, and I look forward to next week where we actually can dive into the issues more.
Well, that's actually going to be an issue that I wanted to bring up later in the show, something that also came out in the news within the last 2 days, but we'll get to that. Right now, well, I was just
we're talking about the environment.
Yeah.
Okay. And primarily how a lot of this environmentalism impacts West Virginia. This week, I actually saw a video, and it's a real interesting video. So I'm going to share something here because what's really interesting is all of a sudden our ocean temperatures are rising very dramatically. And scientists are baffled as to why they are rising so fast. Well, the thing is what they're not taking into account is volcanic activity has also been increasing. We've been seeing volcanic activity, a lot of volcanic activity across the world, let alone under the ocean. Okay, and I'm sorry, but you can't contribute that to climate change.
Well, not only that, each study that you're doing, where are they getting the data from? Is it coming from satellites? Is it coming from the ground? Which part of the ground? They like to leave out little details because since 1958, every single claim that has ever been made by climatologists has been wrong. Global famine, global cooling, global warming.
Since 1929. I've traced it back to 1929.
Okay, I went back to 1958 with their policies. It could be.
I traced it back because that was the first alarmist of global temperature rise. Okay, and how they're saying that the ice caps are going to melt and everybody's going to be underwater, blah, 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 blah. Everything they're saying today. And every one of their predictions since 1929, that's the earliest record I've found, has been wrong.
Yeah.
Every one of them.
Never been right.
And a lot of people, a lot of them on the left, a lot of climate alarmists try to claim that is because we got the warning out in time.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. That is their claim. So we've managed to postpone it because we took action.
No, we didn't.
No. Okay. In the 70s, it was global cooling. Okay. We're headed to another ice age. And it was the ozone. So nature does a deal here, and they claim that, well, of course, you got to subscribe to get to it. But they claim that 90% of the extra heat being caused by climate change is being absorbed by the oceans. Okay. And then they turn around in another article that's actually printed earlier that they're attributing all this rise in ocean temperatures due to excessive volcanic activity.
You know, the planet Earth has had 27 different global heat waves, and global ice sheets. We've had more than one ice age. We've actually had 17. We've had 12 global deserts. They don't know what they're talking. This is their own data. The Earth changes and has changed, according to their data, for millions, if not billions of years. And the arrogance to say that we, who have been on the planet for literally a blip on the global clock, are the only and sole change to everything on the planet. We're controlling everything. We can't predict whether it's going to rain tomorrow at any point in any part of the planet. And they're telling us, oh, no, but we understand this and we've got it all down and it's all just man-made. And the answer is kill the population. That's their answer. We can't leave that out. And their answer is, okay, and we just got to kill a couple billion people. So I got to ask the question, I don't know, maybe someone can answer this for me. Who are we going to kill? We got 1, 2, 3 billion too many people on the planet, according to climate change. Who do we kill?
Listen, this is the Ingrid Newkirk situation all over again. You know, for those of you that don't know, Ingrid Newkirk was the longtime president of PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. Ingrid Newkirk happens to be a type 1 diabetic and requires insulin shots. And where does insulin shots come from? It comes from horses. They use horses to develop the insulin shots. And she's all about, we can't do this with animals. We can't do this. We can't do that. Meanwhile, PETA's still euthanizing 27,000 domestic dogs and cats per year. That's beside the point. But when, she was saying that all these things have to go away, and they said, well, you're on insulin. How do you juxtapose your position to get rid of all the animal testing and all that, everything else, when you yourself are a prime beneficiary of it? She said, well, I need my life to fight for the animals. Well, all the same people that are out there talking about depopulating the earth by the billion are all the people that say, well, when you ask them, well, why don't you start with yourself? If you're so interested in depopulating stuff, I'm sure you could find a means in which to extinguish your own light. Not that anybody's promoting anyone to do such a thing, but at least live by the means you wish others to live by. Forget about your private plane, forget about your coal usage, forget about your oil usage, forget about using plastic, only stick to renewables, only do this, only do that. And then they'll turn around and they say, well, I need those things to fight for climate change. So I can't subject myself to the same rules and regulations that I'd like to subject on the rest of the population, who, when you look at the rest of the population that they'd like to subject it to, it is usually the poorest, most downtrodden people on the face of the earth who don't even have enough food to live by, but now they want to take away from them the very resources that sustain their lives. But they don't make the sacrifice for themselves. Leonardo DiCaprio was filmed last week taking a private helicopter to 6 different mega cruise yachts while at some conference talking about global warming. Well, Leo, why don't you friggin' swim? Why do you got to? Oh, no, you can't. He needs that. John Kerry, another perfect example. He flies all over the world in a private plane paid for by the State Department for him to go from one country to another country so he can take that mug of his and go preaching to the rest of the world how evil America is and how we have to do everything and that they need to kill off their own population. But this is a man who lives in billion-dollar homes, runs rampant on taxpayer dollars, but doesn't make a single sacrifice of himself or his family, because these people will view themselves as being above the fray. They are not in our class. They're not the working class. They're not, Jack and Jill America. These are the rulers. They think that their voice, their opinion, their point of view has to carry more weight, and because it does, they can't make the sacrifice they demand of us to make. And
Absolutely, and a
it's
perfect example of that is when you look at what happens with illegal immigration. They always want all of us to bring them in and house them and take care of them. But when a few of them, what was it? There's like 50 of them get dropped in Martha's Vineyard, and amongst the elites of the elites in this country. You seen how quick they got them out of there. They showed us the best deportation plan there is, use the military, right, to get rid of illegal immigrants. Because they dropped them right in the middle of Martha's Vineyard and they said, "Oh no, we got a housing crisis here. There's no room for them." We didn't mean us to take care of them. We wanted the rest of America to take them and take them in. So it's the same hypocrisy here. These are the same people through my childhood education tried to tell me that we were going to melt and die from acid rain. These are the same people when they got that wrong, they went on the global warming. Then it went on to the ozone was going to burn up. Then it was going to go to the ice caps melting. Then it was going to be global cooling. When they kept getting it wrong, they called it climate change to push this agenda. And here's the thing, folks. Here's another thing that they don't teach you that they used to teach. We talked about the volcanic activity, and it's a natural weather cycle that continues to go. You have volcanic activity, it erupts, it causes a mini ice age, the earth gets cooler, and then once it starts to wear off, the earth starts heating up again, and the cycle repeats. For example, the Revolutionary War in this country was fought during a mini ice age. It wasn't some warm tropical Caribbean Revolutionary War. It was very cold, it was dark, and it had a lot of snow. And we're still coming out of that mini ice age. It's something they don't want to teach you because they're trying to make so much money pushing wind and solar and subsidizing themselves and enriching themselves off your tax dollars. But that's just a reality, folks, that we are coming out of the last mini ice age that happened during the Revolutionary War. They know it, but they don't want to teach you that because they're making so much money off your tax dollars by selling you this fear.
And Chris, I know that there was the mini ice age during the Middle Ages, approximately the 1400s. We had a mini ice age due to volcanic eruptions, and I know that data was taken out of the current climate models on the temperature of the Earth. I'm not familiar with the one during the Middle Age, through the American Revolution. We're talking about 1800s. I'm not familiar with that one because I haven't heard about that one before. Where'd you find that? Because I didn't hear about
that one was actually taught to me in school, and it's something that doesn't get taught that often. But it was a mini ice age. It lasted approximately about 2 years, but still a mini one nonetheless. And it happened because of volcanic activity. And it's just a small example of how volcanic activity, as the Earth gets warmer, it causes volcanic activity. Then activity happens, and then it cools back off, and it stays cool until it wears off, and it gradually warms back up again. Just a natural cycle. And I'm just trying to use it as an example to tell everyone, don't buy into the fear that these environmental scientists, because trust me, whoever's paying them is controlling the narrative, folks. You can prove any study with data as long as you know who's paying for it. They're going to get the data they want because they're the ones paying for it. So at the end of the day, that's who controls the data. But this is exactly what happens. We have the volcanic activity. It cools down, and as it wears off, it warms back up again and repeat the cycle. And it did happen during the Revolutionary War. It wasn't exactly a 50 or 100 year cold one, but it was for 2 winters. It was very cold for the whole year. It's like a 2-year winter.
Okay.
And what Chris is speaking of is spoken in scientific circles as the Little Ice Age.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can find some articles on it. Then they say it's not a true ice age, but if you look at the pattern of how an ice age takes place, this was a microcosm of an ice age. It still bore all the hallmarks of it. It's just a more condensed period of time without it being as extreme as a full-blown ice age. However, he's exactly right. Because this is a blip in their own algorithm, they won't talk about it because it's the proof that contradicts their skewed science.
Yeah, it's like the Middle Age.
It's a crack in the hockey stick, is what it is.
It's just like the Middle Ages ice age, the cooling period during the Middle Ages, which they completely removed the data. And they ignore things like, this is from the NOAA. This is the federal government talking about the hottest the Earth has ever been. Well, 600 million years ago, 250 million years ago, 92 million years ago, 56 million years ago, human beings didn't exist. There was no technology. We know the Earth changes. And
at one point in time, 10,000 years ago, the parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere was 1,000 parts per million.
Right, but
and now we're only sitting at 428.
I understand. So again, the point is they're talking about depopulating the earth. I cannot emphasize that enough.
You want proof of this?
I know the proof is
no.
all over the
I've
place.
got the proof.
Okay.
I'm getting ready to show you the proof. Okay, because this is from the United Nations. Under their World Population Plan. Okay. So it starts off here. Okay. Now this is down in a little ways. To advance national, international understanding of interrelationship of demographic and socioeconomic factors in development. And on one hand, of the nature and scope of the effect of demographic factors on the attainment of goals of advancing human welfare, and on the other hand, the impact of broader social, economic, and cultural factors on demographic behavior, to promote social economic measures and programs whose aim is to affect inter alia population growth, morbidity and mortality, reproduction and family formation, population distribution, internal migration, international migration, and consequently demographic structures, to advance national and international understanding of complex relations among the problems of population, resources, environment, and development, and to promote a unified analytical approach to the study of these interrelationships and relevant policies.
It's amazing to me
Well,
that all of this is a great way to say that they are trying to control populations, control people and nations, that ultimately the goal, and whether you believe in climate change being man-made or not, is not the question here. That isn't the issue at hand, although that is an issue. But the ultimate issue is their answer to the hype, to the fear, is we have to control, the governments have to micromanage your life, take away your freedoms for something that we don't know if they could. They don't even know. It's a speculation that they might be able to provide you with a benefit in 50 years, but they're taking away your rights and freedoms today, and they are willing to go as far as to kill people. Kamala wasn't the first one to say this. It's not the first time that this has ever been mentioned.
It
But
also
it is the first time the United States said openly, yeah, we'll kill people.
It also shows why abortion is such a hot topic amongst these climate alarmists and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's one way to control the population. Increase the number of abortions. That means less people being born, which in turn depopulates depopulates the world.
Which
And-
is happening. We
and
are
probably one
Right.
of the most sickening things about the whole climate debate is that it was released in 1982 by Izora Armstead and Martha Wash, and according to them, the temperature was rising, the barometer was getting low, and according to all sources, the street was the place to go, because tonight, for the first time, just about 10:30. I can't believe you're letting me
Really?
go on with
Really?
this.
Yeah, no, I
cannot
caught it. I
believe
caught it.
you're
Yeah.
going to let me recite
No.
It's
I-
Raining
where are we
Men
going?
here on the podcast. I
This
can't
is-
believe you're
this
going to
is
let me
Frank
get away
for you,
with
folks.
that. You're sitting there
No.
all studiously listening to me as I recite the lyrics to It's Raining Men by the Weather
I know.
Girls.
As soon as you said it's 10:30, I caught it. It's like, come on.
Because as far as I'm
Chris,
concerned,
Chris has never heard that song. He's too young.
I know
heard it.
he hasn't. Well, as a good comedian friend of ours says, well, you're going to learn today. but that, listen, as far as the weather is concerned and climate, listen, take your advice from the Weather Girls, because they have just about as much real science in their music as the climatologists have in their studies. It's all a matter of who funds it, who's making money off it, and what is the end game. And the end game is wealth distribution at any cost, and it doesn't matter how many people they have to blindly indoctrinate into their fold to get their agenda done. They just want to file in the useful idiots who will carry their message, perpetuate it through the high schools and the colleges and brainwash all the students so that everybody who's in the energy sector is evil, is the devil, and want to make everybody drive an electric car, but then never talk about the price of the slavery and the hell and the hardship that's behind putting lithium batteries together.
No,
they don't ever want to talk about that.
No, they don't want to talk about the fact that whether it's wind or solar or geothermal, the heavy metals that are required that come from Africa, which is not compliant with climate change, is more negative, and none of them are carbon positive because of the process to make it. They don't ever want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about the fact that solar panels, especially in the Northeast, only last between 7 and 10 years. They're toxic, and that creates toxic dumping grounds. They don't want to talk about that.
Oh.
And you know why? Because they are training kids not to think. They are training kids to be blindly obedient. And if you think I'm wrong about that, in case people didn't see this, because it wasn't talked about in the United States, it's being talked about overseas. If you can bring this up, Mike, this is an article you're not going to hear in America. The fact that in Massachusetts, they're getting rid of math classes because they have to teach equity. And in California, they're getting rid of math classes to teach social justice. Mike, can you bring up the screen? I want to show this. And you're not hearing, brought it down. You're not hearing about this in the United States. You got to go to the Daily Mail to find out. This is on July 15th. You didn't hear about it all weekend. You didn't hear about it all this week. This should be national news, that they're getting rid of math classes to teach kids equity. What does equity say? White people are evil because of the color of their skin. Black people are victims. Minorities are victims. Women are victims by birth, and you can't do anything about it. Only the government can take care of this for you. And again, it's not just Massachusetts. It is also, hang on, where is it? I know I have it up here. And it's also in California. I forget where I put that article. But in California, they're also doing the same exact thing. And I'll bring up the California in just a second. But in California, they're now going to social, what do they call it? Social, there it is. Mathematics framework. That's what they're calling it now. It is the mathematics framework. And I hate that I have too many windows open, so it takes me a second to bring them all up. Matter of fact, I'll just bring it up this way. Let me show you guys. And this is to stop our kids from thinking. This is the whole purpose of it. And you can bring this up. And you can go to Google right now, type in California Math Framework. I don't know if you heard about this, Chris. I don't know if anyone heard about this. It just happened 2 days ago that they have come out with this new framework that they're going to use math classes to teach social justice. Essentially, they're going to say, well, if you have a billionaire and he gets an extra $1 billion, how much social justice has been taken away from us? If you have 5 evil police officers that are out there taking away the rights of black people, how many police officers do you need? This is the stupidity. They're not teaching math. They're not teaching thinking. They're teaching propaganda. They're teaching progressive politics. And that's why they get away with things like what they're doing with climate change, where they're saying, don't worry about the consequences. Don't think about the inflation or how it's going to negatively impact the environment, the fact that it doesn't make enough energy. No, don't think about that. Don't think about the solution. The ultimate solution they have, the only solution is get rid of a couple billion people because we breathe more carbon dioxide than is made by any other product on the planet. The only answer is get rid of people. They don't want you to think about that. They just want you to obey because, you know what? You're not a person. You're a category. You're a category according to equity, and you have no rights. That's why the UN gives you rights versus you actually having them, as the Constitution says. I think that's the scary thing. We need to talk more about that, I think.
No, I agree. And overall, you're seeing a direct result of the destruction of our education system. It started when they started the Federal Department of Education in 1979. It's been a multi-decade plan to dumb down the masses, so to speak, or indoctrinate us through our public education system. We were number one in the world's education prior to the formation of the Federal Department of Education. And then what happened after that? A couple of decades later, you had No Child Left Behind under George W. Bush. So why is that relevant? Well, they first started out with this federal guidelines, kind of like the CDC or the WHO. We're just going to recommend. We're not going to mandate anything. We'll just recommend. But we all know that their power kept growing and growing. Then under the Bush administration, they took away the power from the county board of educations and gave it to the states through No Child Left Behind programs. And then when Barack Obama came along, he did Common Core, which was the final pill for the federal government to seize control of our education system. And it took it from the states and gave it to the federal government, where they could control every word in every textbook and every syllabus in every classroom. And they're able to teach exactly what they want. It went from an educational system to a propaganda system. And what are we seeing as a result of that? America is no longer in the top 25 in education. We're no longer here in West Virginia. We have the lowest test scores, not only in state history, but American history as a result of that. And we're no longer even in the top 30 in reading, writing, and arithmetic. We're losing our trade jobs. Each generation that comes through, the test scores are lower, their educational standards are lower. And what's happening is they're teaching pronouns and, like you said, CRT and inequality and stuff like that. They're not teaching kids how to learn, reading, writing, arithmetic, or trades, or anything they need to succeed in life. They're teaching a revisionist version of history and indoctrinating with it, including this climate change hoax. And it's just sad to see. And you talked about how they want to depopulate the earth. Well, that's why they promote transgenderism, because that obviously slows down reproduction. If they have people, castrating their bodies, mutilating their bodies, and going down the road of transgenderism, obviously they're not making children that way. And also, that's one reason why they promote abortion so much, because that if they can convince people to kill their own offspring, then that does the dirty work for them. So that's one reason why they actually not only subsidize it, they openly promote it through organizations like Planned Parenthood. And it's just that's just tying everything in together. This has all happened through indoctrinating America through the public education system, which is why the Federal Department of Education has to go.
Well, we sit here and talk a lot about the difference between the right and the left as far as it comes to our politics is concerned, and it's not necessarily ideological discussions that we have, but the gamesmanship, that we play. And conservatives are great at playing the short game. They're great at getting people riled up about a certain issue and trying to get something going for a certain, election cycle. But leftists are professionals at the long game. And if you look at what the fruits that we are plucking off the tree today were planted 100 years ago. And they knew it. They knew that it was going to be a long-term thing, that you couldn't demoralize America quickly, because we can't change it. It's the whole frog in the water thing.
This started long before that.
Game. Oh yeah, it has. But I'm just saying, in reference to the last 100 years, if we look at, let's go from Woodrow Wilson and forward. Let's go from the introduction of the personal income tax forward. Let's look at, the Great Society forward. All of these things were all designed to have a long-term talking point that they could utilize. And that was one of the reasons why is college loan deferment and forgiveness such a hot topic now? Because that was all taken out of the hands of private lending institutions 30 years ago and put under the umbrella of government, where government was now in control of your student loans. Well, when you take that out of the free market where it did belong, when you had colleges that actually had to compete with one another, and you had reasonable expectation of tuition costs, and you had your 2-year, 4-year Ivy League and all the rest of that, there was something there. There was a competition motive behind it. And then when you turn around and you put everything under the auspices of the federal government, and then they're controlling the purse strings as to the loans. Well, if the federal government is in charge of the loans, then the federal government can hold the carrot and the stick and say, well, We could use this when we need to buy votes. Because it's not all money. We don't care if it's all money, but if Chase Manhattan Bank, Wells Fargo, and all the rest of them were the ones that had holding the debt, and the government said, "Oh, we want you to forgive all this debt," they would say, "Are you out of your mind? We have stockholders we have to answer to. We have a bottom line we have to answer to. But if you only have to answer to the taxpayer, frig the taxpayer. We're just going to print more money anyway. Doesn't matter what the taxpayer wants. We need to have the votes so we can control this." Everything has been a long ball game with them from the get-go. And this whole climate debate, again, they saw something they could use for their agenda. They get debunked every time something happens. When another one of their predictions doesn't come true, they get debunked. They change the narrative, point to the same evidence, and say, "Oh, well, now we're going to get it right." It's the same argument for communism. Well, it wasn't. We weren't fighting for real climate change. Now we're going to fight. This is really, really climate change. Well, no, this is really, really, really climate change. It's always going to be the same argument, the same evidence, the same defunct, crap that we've been dealing with, just with another bow wrapped around it. And the more they can federalize it, the more control they have over everybody.
Here's the thing. Okay, and we typically point out all the left and the actions the left do. This isn't just the left that's taking over power. Okay, it is an orchestrated movement on both the left and the right to transition the power away from the people and into the hands of the government. And you can say that the right isn't wanting to do that, but I'm going to say bullshit on that.
Well,
the right is just as responsible. I mean, look at things that they did with the NSA. That was all conducted under right administrations.
Well, Mike, I have no love for the right either. With their politics, I'm always the one who says it's all a big game, a party, and we're not invited to it. It's the uniparty. It doesn't matter. It's agenda-driven politics that they mask in one party or another to give you the illusion of choice, when the bottom line is they expand their power, the American people reduce their power, and we get caught in the middle holding the bag. Well, like I said, we get 47 flavors, 40 different kinds of bottled water, but only two political parties to choose from.
Well, I think there's a difference of what's the establishment, because I think there are people, left and right, who have their individual beliefs and agendas, and they want to push them forward. I think that's true. And then there's the establishment that are just reelect me, more power, keep that power centralized within them. Currently, in the latest cycle, we've been seeing more of the left saying and doing that than the right. But I also think that there are certain extremities that we see on the left to move towards progressive socialist communist ideology that are far more damaging. It's not to say that the right doesn't have its problems. I do not hide from that at all. They do. But when I'm looking at some of the immediate dangers, I'll give you a great example of this, is the transgender in our military. The latest thing that has come out, which we just saw 2 days ago, it has been now reported by Catholic Vote. It was brought out on Dossier Today. Not the deployment, the failure. This is about the transgender movement altogether. I'll show you, and it's come out on Breitbart as well. Mind you, the DOD has not denied that this is true. No one has questioned whether or not this memo exists and was created on February 1st of 2023. Okay, and here's the memo itself from the Defense Health Agency, Womack Army Medical Center. This is the MedSend Memorandum 40-517. And as I said, this has come out now. It's been out by Catholic Vote. It was initially pointed out by Dossier.Today, and it's been also reported on by Breitbart. The DOD has not denied this, has not come out and said this is incorrect or this is not true. No one has said that this isn't real. So what this is saying that our military is now affirming blind affirmation of transgenders in our military. Fine, whatever, except we are now changing. We're changing the way that we're going to have our military fight. We have individuals who will be excused for 300 days ad infinitum. They're not going to be on the front lines. They're not actually going to be fighting. They're not going to be doing the mission of our military. We're going to pay for their transitions in the military. We're going to pay to treat them differently than any other member of our service, which is not what the military doctrine is for. Has nothing to do with their rank. They're just special, and they will always, forever be excused, including things as simple as they don't have to have the same grooming nor the same uniform standards as everyone else in our military. Now, when you start thinking about that, if we have a military that no longer operates under the chain of command, but operates on the political preferences of small groups of our government, everything falls apart. Who's defending us? How are they defending us?
Well, just to throw this in there, but don't we always hear from anti-gun zealots, what part of well-regulated don't you mean? Well, if you have a military, our United States armed forces are going to be dismantled to the point where its people aren't even going to be deployed because they're on hormone therapy or anything. And you have all these different classifications. And as Jen just pointed out, they're telling people that cis men, real men, natural-born men aren't right for the military. When do we start to look and say that our military is no longer well-regulated?
Well, I would argue if we're being overrun by people who have a mental disorder of gender dysphoria, as they call it, if that's who we have as a military, I would say we're no longer a very well regulated militia, because these are the people with mental health issues, folks. Let's call it for what it is. It's not just something that you're born as. It's a mental health crisis. And decades ago, these are the people that would go into mental institutions and be seeing psychiatrists and things. But we try to normalize this stuff and play make believe and play to this mental illness instead of trying to help them get the mental health treatment they need. And it's created a nationwide health pandemic, if you will. And it's just sad to see. And you talked about the Second Amendment there a little bit as well. Folks, I'm a very staunch defender of that Second Amendment. And, just not necessarily a policy talking point, but just a general statement here. When our founding fathers wrote the Second Amendment, they didn't come back from returning from a hunting trip. They just finished liberating a nation. And they had the same firepower and weaponry as the same British Empire they fought to free themselves from. So when we talk about shall not be infringed, we have to maintain that reality and freedom with our Second Amendment. But we also, at the same time, with our military, we need to get this wokeness out of our military, because it is weakening us on the grand stage. China's military, they're investing a lot into it. We currently invest the most in ours and currently have the world's strongest. But if we allow this woke indoctrination and this shift to transgenderism into our military, it's not going to be very long where physically they're going to be passed by many other nations. And I almost would argue that this is intentional, folks, to weaken our military. And it's disgusting to see that, we have people in our military get dishonorably discharged for refusing to take an experimental vaccine, but we're going to allow someone to take hormonal therapies and claim to be transgender from being deployed. That's okay, but if you refuse to take an experimental drug, they're going to kick you and dishonorably discharge you out of the military. It's disgusting, and we have to clean this up, folks, before it's too late.
Yeah, they would court-martial somebody for being a conscientious objector.
They did.
Somebody that had, strict religious beliefs as far as, being able to take another human life. People that just refused. They said, my religion will not allow me to do this. And they would court-martial these men. And these men would spend the entirety of their military career behind bars. Now we're giving free passes away because people can't figure out what their gender is supposed to be. And you think for a second that this isn't going to be a bait for all of these people that they can't afford to transition, that are now going to go and sign up, and they go, well, what the hell is the difference? I'm going to get free board, free medical care. They're never going to tell me I have to deploy. I'm going to get a paycheck. I'm going to get veterans benefits. I'll be able to qualify for college loans, in order to get every benefit that the U.S. military offers with the GI Bill and everything else. And having never had to actually put a moment's worth of, your life on the line the way that everybody else, would have.
It destroys
Maxwell
military
Klinger
discipline.
was a joke. Now it's for real.
Yeah, it's very real, and it's a destruction of our military chain of command. It's a destruction of military discipline, and countries like China, Iran, Russia, North Korea, they're laughing at us. They're looking at this and saying, this is why we see Southeast Asia is militarizing right now, getting ready for a war somewhere in 2027 and 2028. Japan's building its first military since 1945. Why? Because we're spending the time on our military being nice and cozy and fuzzy and friendly. That's not what our military is for. And as you have up on the screen, Mike, we're seeing that we're doubling the population trans youth, which again makes me ask, for all the people in our military, for all the youth that we're convincing of this, what if we're wrong 1% of the time? What is the impact to the rest of the world? None of this is constitutional, by the way. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say that if you join the military, you're entitled to be able to have the military change your gender. It's one thing to say you have to have your teeth so you can be a good soldier. You need eyeglasses because you're a soldier, that you have to be in good physical condition to be a soldier. That has nothing to do with your sexual preference. The military doesn't care about your sexual preference. They want you to be able to shoot and to go to the enemy and fight them. They don't care if you feel good about it at the same time. That's not the job. And yet we have distracted from that, and we've introduced politics into our military, which is unconstitutional. It is abjectly the wrong thing to be doing to promote our country, I think.
There used to be a time when if you were an active duty service member and you went and got a tattoo and your CO found out about it, you could get court-martialed for defacing government property.
No, that isn't used to. That's still part of this.
Yeah, but it's not enforced. Now it's not enforced. Now they're saying, "Oh, screw your tattoo. We're going to pay to have your 3-piece set lopped off."
It's crazy.
It's a world of insanity. All right, listen. It's getting on 9:58. We know that Chris has another appointment that he's got to take care of tonight at 10:05. So let's back off of some of the political stuff a little bit, because we weren't even supposed to get that deep into the woods tonight. Tonight was, but hell, we carry machetes and we go wandering. That's how we do things here. But we wanted to get to know Chris a little bit. So I'm gonna throw a couple of Second Amendment questions at you, but not political Second Amendment questions for you. Do you carry?
Absolutely. I got a concealed carry permit, and I've had it ever since I got it at 21, almost at 18, but 21 years old, because that's the age here in West Virginia. And I carry everywhere I go, except for when I'm on the clock, because my employer doesn't allow it on the clock. But outside of that, I carry all the time.
Well, you got to talk to your employer about that, because that's your rights do not stop at your employment door. Now, as far as your everyday carry goes, what are you packing when you carry it? What's in your daily lineup?
I have a Springfield XD Mod 2 and a 45. I'm actually a big fan of it. I have a couple of Glocks, but the Springfield I like to lean towards as far as it. Every once in a while I'll mix it up and I'll carry like a Ruger Blackhawk revolver. Sometimes I mix it up, carry a revolver, but normally I stick with my Springfield XD. It's my weapon of choice, so to speak.
All right. When you go hunting, what's your preferred hunting rifle and what's your preferred round?
I have a Christian Arms. It's a Ridgeline. It's a carbon fiber barrel, and I use a 300 Win Mag because here in West Virginia, when it's rifle season for deer, it's also, we have a lot of bear in the state as well. So it's just a kind of a 2-for-1. We obviously have different seasons for bear and deer, but just, one rifle that covers everything. I use a 300 Win Mag because I also can take that same rifle out west and do elk hunts with it.
Well, there's nothing on North American territory that you can't put down with a 300 Win Mag. Introduced in 1963. By the Winchester Corporation for the Model 70 rifle, the 300 Win Mag, and I don't care how old it is. I'd talk about, they could throw any other round out there. 300 Win Mag is still one of the best rounds that are out there. I punched holes in 3/4-inch steel plate with Winchester white box from 150 feet. That'll do some damage. It's a pretty good stuff. Yeah, me, I I've been carrying a Beretta 92 Centurion since 1993. But now that I'm here in North Carolina, where it's a little hotter and you tend to dress a little lighter, I'm carrying a SIG 365 XL. That's my daily carry. I have like 40 or 50 others to choose from. There's always something within reach, but those are my go-to. And my hunting rifle, Model 70 Winchester 300 Win Mag, that I have a first gen 1963 that belonged to my dad. It has 22 rounds through it. 22 rounds, and not one single round has ever taken game. It's only taken targets. That's it. All my meat comes under plastic. If you find me out in the woods hunting an animal, then you know it's pretty desperate times. I'd rather just go shopping, But listen, it's great that you're a supporter. It's great that you're a carrier, and hopefully you can talk to your employer a little bit about that. Say, hey, somebody comes in that doesn't work here, and doesn't care about your little sign on the door. You might want somebody like me being able to take care of things, but that's
absolutely. I would agree with you there that the majority of the crime in this country happens in gun-free zones. So obviously, the good guy with the gun is what stops the bad guy with the gun, and we've seen that story happen time and time again in this country. The media doesn't necessarily want to cover that, but when it does leak out, those stories do prove what we're just saying here. That the only person that's going to stop an evil person with a weapon is the good people having access to that same weapon, and that's what the checks and balances of our society. We have to have that.
Well, I used to work at a big box outfitting store where they sell firearms and ammunition and all the rest of that, but it's in the back of the store and you got to walk through 500 feet of swag before you get to it. And I was the gun librarian. I was in charge of buying and selling and all the rest of that stuff and evaluating firearms as they came in. And when I went in for the orientation, they said, there's no weapons allowed on the premises. And I was like, I don't understand that. You're an FFL. The guy behind the counter at a gun store always has a gun. What's the story? So, well, we don't allow that here. We don't allow you to carry a firearm. And I said to myself, well, I'll have the key to the gun cabinet. There's a plethora of firearms at my disposal. I'll carry a couple of different magazines, maybe one for a Glock, maybe a Beretta magazine, so that if God forbid something happens, I can requisition a firearm in a case of emergency and do what I've been training to do for over 30 years. And they said, no, you can't carry, we won't let you carry ammunition, won't let you do this, won't let you do that. And I said, well, what happens in the event that something actually happens here? Oh, well, you have a passcode. The key, your electronic ID will get you into the vault area, into the safe room. So if something happens, you can get back there. I was like, well, your cashiers are 300 feet away from me at the front of the store. They don't have access to that room. Nor do any of your clients. You have elderly couples that come in every morning just to walk the store for their exercise. That's what they do. You have mothers pushing babies in carriages. They don't have access to that room. Why is this? And everything has gotten so overly politicized with insurances and everything else that they don't want to run the risk of, one of the employees tries to stop an active shooter and accidentally may hit a civilian. I'm like, all right, but what are the odds of that happening versus somebody actually coming in with the intent of hitting people? They don't equate that. And as soon as that policy just started to rub me the wrong way a little bit, I put my papers in and I walked out. So I can't, if you're going to be a gun store, but not stand behind the Second Amendment and make that available to your employees so that they can protect themselves, their coworkers, and your clientele, then you're using the Second Amendment as a crutch to make profit, but you're not using the Second Amendment to promote your civil liberties. And I couldn't work for a company like that. And it's a shame that so many companies have that point of view.
Totally separate question, Chris. What's your favorite type of music?
Well, probably maybe controversial here, but just regular country music, 80s, 90s country. Not so much maybe the modern stuff today. I mean, it's okay, but just I'm a country boy. I live out in the sticks, and then that's our kind of music. Not too big into modern rock, like 80s rock. I can listen to stuff like that, but modern rock, the heavy metal, not for me. The rap music's not for me. Jokingly, let's say my favorite song right now, just because it's triggering the left, is "Try That in a Small Town." Because right here in West Virginia, that stuff ain't flying here. You can do it to your cities, but you ain't doing it out here in Wild and Wonderful because the people of these small towns will defend their own.
Well, to quote the movie The Blues Brothers, Chris likes both kinds of music, country and western. All right, Chris, listen, we're gonna let you go. We really do appreciate you coming on tonight, and we hope that next week we can explore a little further into your candidacy, your campaign, what your vision for West Virginia is, and overall what your vision for America is. And we'd like to, again, thank you for that, and for coming on tonight. We look forward to seeing you next week. And like I said, you're always welcome to come on in whichever capacity you'd like to join us. You're always welcome to have. We'll always have an empty spot in the studio for you.
I'm gonna give you a heads up, Chris. Brush up on the Constitution.
Sounds good. I look forward to it next week, fellas. And I thank you for letting me be part of a nice conversation. And we'll see you soon, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Give Susan our regards.
Have a great week.
All right, you too, fellas. Appreciate it.
Have a good night, sir.
All right, you too. Good night.
What a nice young man.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
Very nice young man. It's one of those things that it always pains me, because when somebody talks about West Virginia, people get that media portrayed image in your mind.
Deliverance.
Yeah.
That's what people think of is anywhere in the South. It's all deliverance. It's like, come on, folks.
Yeah. You got a pretty smile. But
yeah,
I think of John Denver.
That's Colorado. That's the Midwest.
No. Every
no, I'm talking about the public image. John Denver is the Midwest.
No, but every time I drive back and forth across the country and I drive through West Virginia, I do my check-ins when I call the house, and I start singing "Take Me Home, Country Road." This way, Lori always knows if I just crossed to the northern border of West Virginia, or I'm going up through the southern border of West Virginia. So yes, so John Denver plays a huge part in West Virginia. So
I'm not saying he doesn't, but I'm saying the impression most people have when they hear John Denver, first thing they think of is the
recreational
Midwest.
Aircraft.
Well, no, that's just mean. That's just mean.
Well, is it too soon, Vass? Is it too soon?
It's
right,
it's like saying Leonard Skinner just loves planes. No.
All right, so I won't talk about skiing next time we talk about Sonny Bono.
There you go. Same thing. So mean. You're so mean sometimes. By the way, most people
Chris are raising horseback riding.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, 2/3 of the audience have no idea what any of these people are, or what we're talking about.
Yeah, I know. And Ted Kennedy was a nice chap and never a quitter.
Yeah, he was an excellent driver.
Yes. No, but anyway, Chris, again, if you come back and review the video this evening, again, thank you very much. Stand up guy, so happy to have you here tonight. We're looking forward to being able to get a little bit more in depth with your positions next week on some of the more pressing matters of the day.
You know what I like? He came onto the program knowing that we weren't going to do the political interview, which I screwed up. Again, I screwed up in my promoting of today. But he came in knowing that we weren't going to say, okay, what's your election position on this? Where's your campaign about that? He came on to just be a guy, to just talk about some of these things that are happening in the country.
Right.
And just say, hey, this is what I think, which most politicians don't have the balls to actually just stand up and go, yeah, and here's what I think about what's happening right now. He didn't know what any of the questions were going to be. He didn't know what I was going to pull up or what Mike was going to bring up. No. He just was here as a person saying, hey, this is where I stand.
As a matter of fact, we told him to pop into the studio 15, 20 minutes before we go live, just so we could get comfortable with one another. Because that's usually what we do, is we sit around for a little while before the show and we just shoot the shit for a little bit, just so that everybody can get rid of the pre-show jitters and everything. Because a lot of people, if they're not used to being on camera, as soon as they see themselves up in that monitor, they freeze up, they get a little confused. I mean, we were at the New York Ash Show many years ago when I was trying to do a couple of videos, and just trying to talk about the C-130 took me about 18 friggin' tries, and I still didn't use any of the goddamn video from it. And I was still really whipping in the ears. Thank God Vass was there to walk me through it and talk me down. So we usually start 20 minutes early just so we could get comfortable and talk, and we don't discuss the show at all. We'll talk about it. All right, we might hit this issue, that issue, this issue, but that's if we're going to talk about those policies specifically. Tonight, we just told Chris when he showed up 3 minutes before we went live, we said, hey, we just want to get to know you as a person. And, just so you're comfortable with us, you know who we are, you get an idea of what our style is. And, we're not going to hit you with nothing heavy, just, a couple of guys sitting around poker table, just having a chit chat, no big deal. And what you see is what you get. He's seems like a straight shooting kind of guy. We could appreciate that. Now we'll gauge that against next week.
Well, next week is the serious. That's when we go into interview mode, which is different for people who don't know. It's very different. It's not like laugh, joke, haha. It's here's the issue. Here, how are you going to vote? Here's the issue.
Spotlights. We put the spotlights on you.
Yeah, that's an entirely different thing. But
we put the thumb screws onto the table so nobody knows about it.
Yeah, but it's interesting. But I just find it interesting that. But I find it interesting. Yeah, in 17 years of doing this, of political commentary, especially interviewing people, I can tell you, almost nobody has the balls to actually show up and just go, by the way, I'm just going to talk. So I really was impressed by that. I got to say.
Well, you do. And the thing is, you got to be careful when you do talk to people, because you have some of these politicians that are so well polished. They put the polish in politician, that they can come across as if they are speaking to you like it's straight off the cuff, but then you can find an interview from some obscure show 3 weeks earlier and it's verbatim. They'll have the same paragraph so studied, that's exactly what they'll talk about. He did get into a little bit of a commercial for himself there. Understandable, but again,
it's bound to happen.
Yeah, we're going to chalk that up to a little bit of nerves, and that's fine. That's cool. He doesn't know us. He wants to make sure that he puts his best foot forward out there. But once he's, got acclimated, boom, right with it. And dude, lots of credit for that. Lots of credit.
Well, too many politicians are being handled, and they aren't allowed to really speak what they want to speak.
And yes, Jan,
okay, they got to
stick
with talking points, and that's all they're allowed to do.
Yeah. So. That being said, and I think that was important to mention, just good to cover. I'm still pissed off, guys. I'm still pissed off about. I can't get away from this. Kamala Harris, potentially the second most powerful person in the world, or in the second most powerful seat in the world, wants to kill people. The media is trying to give you every excuse to say you didn't hear what you just heard. We've got California being California saying that math isn't about 2 + 2. It's about social justice. The answer to everything in California is social justice. Massachusetts is going, California said it's all about social justice, so it must be about social justice. And we got our military that's so busy trying to make California, Massachusetts feel good about themselves. They're forgetting that we have 30,000 Americans in Afghanistan, in Ukraine, and Sudan that are being tortured, as confirmed by the CIA and the DOJ and the DOD. We know that the Americans right now are being tortured, and everybody's worried about, well, let's lower the population of the world, and let's make people progressives, a sliver, 2% of the population, make sure they feel warm and fuzzy about themselves. Guys, this is crazy. This is not what the Constitution was built for. This isn't what our government's supposed to be about.
No, it's not. It absolutely is not. And that's the thing is we go over this and we talk till we're blue in the face, but I'm honestly hoping that something will tip the scales where the people will just finally say enough is enough. Okay. And not necessarily take up arms, but start taking action. And we're starting to see it a little bit. And it does give me some hope. Where we're starting to see people standing up at school board meetings a lot more. We're starting to see people actually standing up at town council meetings more. But honestly, folks, one or two voices here and there isn't going to change it. We've got to start coming together. Okay. And you know that my thinking process and so forth maybe indicate that I'm right of center, but honestly, I'm a constitutionalist at heart. Okay. And the Constitution doesn't care if you're left or right. What it does care about is there is a certain design for the way the government is supposed to operate. And it is very detailed in the Constitution of the United States. Until we start as a people demanding that our politicians and the people that we send to Washington, D.C. to represent us start adhering to that Constitution, things are going to continue to get worse. And you are going to see the left encroach upon your rights, and you're going to see the right encroach upon your rights. Okay? And the thing is we're too busy pointing fingers at the opposite side, saying, look at what they did. That's not right. Instead of saying, hey, all of this isn't right. Okay?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not pointing at Kamala or the progressives per se. I'm saying that we have even gotten to the point that in our government, these are issues, these are things that are happening. Never were they designed or meant to happen in our Constitution, in the foundation of our nation, and at no other period in our existence, 240 plus years, we have never said this. We are at a point that we've gotten too comfortable and we have allowed too many people to just become neo-nobles without regard to, no, you're our subordinates. They are supposed to answer to us. They serve us, not the other way around. And we need to reinforce that over and over again. They're not in charge. We are.
And honestly, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. Can you honestly and truthfully say, that even a candidate from your own political party truly represents you?
No, that's the thing.
Can anybody honestly answer that yes?
Not just represent you, serve you. Do they serve you? Or are they expecting you to be served by them? I think that's the way for the average person, think of it. Are they serving your best interest, or are they telling you how you can serve
your interests are?
Yeah.
Okay. And be honest again with yourself. Is your party telling you what issues should matter to you?
Yeah. I mean, it's a really big deal.
Okay. You're not, your political party doesn't represent you. And the candidates coming out of those parties aren't representing you. Okay. Until we get back to our foundational roots, which is the Constitution. you're not going to see a change. You're not going to see true representation. You're going to see our lords in Congress dictating what we are allowed and not allowed to do. And that's what we're seeing today.
Yeah. Well, Jan just brought up a great point, a great example of that. This week, RFK Jr. went before the congressional hearing on weaponizing of the government, of censorship, essentially talking about censorship in modern media, whether it's social media, newspapers, doesn't matter, TV, doesn't matter, and how it's been used to silence the public. And the first thing that happened was it was Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was key in the Clinton campaign in 2016. And she used the same tactics against RFK as she used against Bernie Sanders. Said, nope, you can't talk. You're not supposed to be able to speak. And the only thing, here's the thing about the RFK, and I was very upset about this. And yeah, RFK's a Democrat. I don't care. The first thing she did is she misquoted a rule of the House so that she was trying to hide his conversation. It wasn't that she was going to say complete censorship. Oh, you can't speak at all. She said the American people can't hear any of the questions or any of the answers that RFK, a Democrat, could make to what Democrats and Republicans had to say. The American people were not allowed, according to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, were not allowed to hear the questions or the answers. The whole thing had to be hidden from the public. Why? Because she didn't like what he might say. Her answer was, well, he might say something that was criminal. That wasn't the subject at hand. That he might say something that could affect a person. No, he was talking about what happened to him. And every one of the rules, I actually looked up the regulation that she brought up. House Rule 11, Section 2, subsection G, in case anyone wants to look it up. I actually did. I did a video on it. And nothing that he was being asked about his personal experience fits in there. Her only intention was the American people he has to be hidden. He has to be suppressed so the American people couldn't possibly hear a word he says. That's not what our Constitution is about. That's not what Congress is for. And I don't care if it was a Democrat or a Republican, doesn't matter. He's there at an open meeting. The American people should hear it, whether they like it or dislike it, agree or disagree. That's on you as an individual. It's not for Debbie Wasserman Schultz or any Democrat to say, oh, we don't like that. It might be politically sensitive. It might affect our fundraising or our votes, so you don't get to hear it. I'm sorry. That's not how the Constitution works. That's not how Congress works.
Well, and we've said this also, that our government needs to become more transparent than what it currently is. Yeah. They try to list too many things as being affecting national security. I'm sorry, but a lot of the things that they're trying to implicate as affecting national security doesn't. And then we have incidents like the cocaine deal, which is a huge impact on national security. And the investigation gets dropped after what? Less than a week?
Yeah. And all the evidence gets destroyed.
Yeah.
All gone. Don't talk about it anymore. Story's moved on.
Yeah, I love how Dan Bongino. I love Dan Bongino. He's a good guy, but I love how he talked. He spoke about how Trump always treated the Secret Service like they were fantastic people, and he loved them, and they loved him, and it was great. And the Secret Service can't stand Joe Biden because he's always on these very abusive tirades. He's always screaming at them and yelling at them, and they don't like the guy. They're going to do their job, but they don't like it. All right, you're doing your job. You're protecting the life of the president of the United States. It's not your fucking job to protect the reputation of the president of the United States. It's not your job to shield the president of the United States from criminal activity on behalf of himself, his son, or any of the people that he invited to our executive mansion. Not his White House, it's our White House. That's not the job of the Secret Service, but it seems the Secret Service, just like the Capitol Hill Police, is doing the bidding of people based on political power and not necessarily in the best interest of the American people.
And that's what's truly sad. Okay. And we've got an election coming up. Here in not too distant future. And we've got one candidate that's facing umpteen million indictments.
He's going to get charged.
Criminal cases.
Let's be honest. By the time we get to January of 2024, they will convict Trump of something. It might be jaywalking. It might be something else. But they will not stop until they find anything that they can finally get a jury to say guilty on, so they can say, well, if he's guilty of that, he's guilty of everything we have ever imagined him to be guilty of. So that's going to happen. So we have one candidate who's accused and is being railroaded. And I say that because Russia collusion, 3 years, absolutely false. Ukraine phone call, absolutely false. Everything they brought up has all been proven false to date. So let's be honest. You got that, and then you got another guy, $17 million directly traced, at least $5 million of it going into his bank account. He's screwed up. He's connected to the CCP. We know that there are allegations of his son selling political influence while he was in office as vice president, and none of that's supposed to matter. That's what we're looking at in 2018. Ignore the problems and the questions.
And honestly, okay, regardless of whether Trump's guilty or not guilty of the stuff that he's being indicted for, we are down to an election where we are literally being told, well, my candidate isn't as evil as your candidate is, so you need to vote for my candidate.
Yeah. That is the argument.
Okay, that is the sheer crux of the argument for the presidential race of 2024.
Yeah, that is it. My guy's not as bad as your guy. Ultimately.
Okay. I mean, come on. Don't we deserve better than that?
Yeah.
No, we don't.
Well, actually,
We
Frank,
don't.
I got to agree with you. We don't.
We don't.
Because we've allowed this to happen.
You get the politicians, you get the representatives that you deserve. If the American people do not demand more, demand better, and do it every single time, then guess what? Suck it up, buttercup. You're going to eat what they give you, and that's what you deserve. If you complain about your job, but you never speak up, you deserve the job you're in. If you complain in your relationship, but you don't do anything to fix it, that's the relationship you deserve. You get what you deserve in this country. Now, granted, there are those of us in the country who do want things to be better, that do want things to be the right way, that do speak up and do say what's got to be said. But we're outnumbered by 90% of the politicians, 90% of the population who don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
And because they don't give a shit,
of the population that says, I don't do politics.
Yeah. Well, politics is doing us. And unfortunately, we have to reap the rewards. That's why there were 3% of the population that won the independence for the other 97. Because the other 97 didn't want to rock the boat.
I did want to bring something up, and this is actually significant. There's a huge push to get the Equal Rights Amendment ratified. I guess they need one more state to quote unquote ratify it, is what they're thinking.
I hope not.
No.
It is that
Plain
is
and
evil.
simple, no. The Equal Rights Amendment actually expired March 22nd, 1979. In 1978, Congress, by a simple majority vote, voted to extend that deadline until 1983. However, that wasn't enough votes to actually modify the amendment that was put forth. Okay. Any amendment or modification of said amendment still has to pass by 2/3 majority of both the House and the Senate. So the extension is invalid because that is not what the amendment that was put forth to the states was.
Yeah, but I have a different problem with it. It's not beyond the fact that it's inaccurate to say, well, this has been active for the last 40 years. Even if we said, okay, even if we let that go, by its definition, much like affirmative action, the Equal Rights Amendment is government sponsored prejudice, it is government sponsored bias. And if you allow the government to have bias and prejudice against any group of people, any category of people, then we're back to slavery. We've gone back to the 1860s.
Okay, I'm going to bring up a couple points on why it stalled. Okay, and honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing an Equal Rights Amendment put forth because if it's worded the way it should be worded, then it would take affirmative action out. Okay, it would require that women register for the draft. It would require that women be put in combat. Okay, those are key factors that were put forth by feminists and others as to why the Equal Rights Amendment shouldn't be ratified.
Yeah,
And as a result of that, 5 states actually withdrew their ratification prior to the deadline of March 22nd, 1979. So even if you do have, quote unquote, 39 states that ratify it, most of those states ratified it after the expiration. Plus, if you're going to bend the rules, then we also have to allow the states that pulled their ratifications to actually de-ratify the amendment.
Well, that's another aspect of it. But again, I'm going to the core of it. The core of it is Equal Rights Amendment is dehumanizing to women. It is dehumanizing, and it is prejudicial, and it is biased. I understand there's a lot of people who have never thought of it that way, and people don't like it being said that way. But the blunt and honest truth is just like affirmative action. This is prejudicial. It is biased, authorized by the government, and it effectively makes people slaves. It takes us back to the 1860s because it is that dehumanizing. It is literally saying women are so incapable of taking care of their own lives and achieving their own goals in terms of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They are so childlike and incapable that the full force of the United States government, in objection to the Constitution, must be put in place to micromanage their lives. And that's effectively and honestly what that does. People may not like that, but that is what it is. And how can we say yes to that?
Okay, so actually, let me share this. This is the actual Equal Rights Amendment that was passed.
You mean advanced? Wasn't passed.
Okay, proposed amendment to the Constitution of the United States. Okay, proposed amendment to the Constitution of the United States. Second session, 92nd Congress. Proposing an amendment to the Constitution of the United States relative to equal rights for men and women. Resolved by the House and Senate the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, 2/3 of each house concurring therein, that the following article is proposed as an amendment to the Constitution of the United States, which shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of the Constitution when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states within 7 years from the date of its submission by Congress. So right there, when this was submitted to the states, there was a time clock put on. Okay, and this was what was voted on and passed by 2/3 of the House and Senate. Section 1, equality of rights under law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. The Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. This amendment shall take effect 2 years after the date of ratification.
Yeah.
Okay, that is the amendment. That is what they're trying to push through.
Yes. And it's dehumanizing.
Okay, so it basically says that anything that gives women an advantage in the marketplace can't be done. Okay, because women must be treated exactly the same as men, and vice versa.
But the Constitution already says that. And to even be more, not only does it say that, we've said that in the Declaration of Independence, we said it again in the Constitution, and to even be more clear for someone who might have misinterpreted it, that's why we had the 13th and 22nd or 21st Amendments, to make it even more clear. I mean, we have defined this as clearly as possible that no one today can realistically look at the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, or the amendments and say, oh, we have not only said it, we've resaid it and resaid it again. We've made it as clear as possible. Everyone's equal. We don't need this. Jan is right. Many people understand this. We don't need this. To do this is dehumanizing. I can't say that enough.
You don't understand the full implications of what this amendment actually says. Okay, they think that it is about women's rights and so forth, and it's not. Okay,
No.
in fact, if anything, this amendment will take away women's rights.
It's just got a really snappy name that sounds really great on 30-second ads.
Like
Okay.
the Affordable Health Care Act.
Yeah, it just sounds great.
Yeah. Okay, and it's not a good amendment. That's
Like
one of
the
the reasons
Patriot
why
Act.
5 states pulled their ratification of the amendment.
Yeah, but no one's thinking about that, Mike. No one has even thought about when it was supposed to be.
I will venture to say that the majority of the people that are screaming that this should be passed and ratified and adopted in the Constitution have never did what I just did.
What, read the bill? Of course
Yeah.
not. No one reads the bill. Members of Congress have admitted they don't read the bill.
Everybody says, read the bill, read the
Okay.
bill.
And what? It was less than 3 paragraphs?
Mike, it could be one sentence. They don't read the bills. They've admitted they don't read the bills. They just have really snazzy bumper stickers and 30-second ads and a minute and a half on nightly news. And everyone goes, well, the title sounds good, so it must be great. You can sell anything in America, any political issue. If you have the right name for it, it's fantastic. The Inflation Reduction Act actively increases inflation. It's not a maybe. It's not an interpretation. The CBO has come out. It's been reviewed by economists. The Inflation Reduction Act increases inflation. It is a fact. But because it sounds good, people say it's great. It's reducing inflation. Unless you're living in hell, no, it doesn't. It's just because it has a great name. Because no one reads, and they have someone on the nightly news. Well, CNN said it's good for me, so it must be good.
The Bipartisan Infrastructure Act.
Bipartisan Communities Act, which promotes red flag laws and is actually paying states to put you, the American taxpayer, onto a list to take away your Second Amendment rights without ever having a trial or a crime. Literally.
Well, and here's the thing. The quote unquote Bipartisan Infrastructure Act is literally a means of the federal government to reward states that are acting the way they want them to. And we went into this last week with the tunnel.
Yeah.
Okay, that they're proposed in New York City.
Yes. It's
okay, and I'm sure we can dig through other things that have been awarded under this Infrastructure Act. Okay, part of the Infrastructure Act is rewarding huge mega corporations with various things for broadband internet.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's all it is. It's a slush fund to reward people for quote unquote good behavior.
It's a benefit.
And if you don't act the way we want you to act, we aren't going to give you the money.
It's a way to corral all the special interests and get them in the same direction.
Mm-hmm.
But this is it is. See, for me, it's not just that it's. When I look at the ERA, like I look at affirmative action, it's not just that it's unconstitutional. It's that it's dehumanizing, and that's the part of it that I think most people, because they don't read these bills, because they don't consider the consequences, because our modern journalists don't ever ask questions about the obvious and logical immediate impact, we're seeing a whole movement of people going, the title sounds great, so it must be good. I'm going to do this. And they've never considered how dehumanizing it is. And that takes us, God, perhaps even communism isn't as extremely, well, it's a toss-up of which one is more dehumanizing, but it is evil. This is evil we're talking about. The ERA, like affirmative action, is evil, and I'll be happy to debate with any politician of any party and any political organization on why I say that. And no one's willing to allow that conversation to happen, which should scare people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
There's so much that our government does that should actually terrify people. Okay, and it's stuff that keeps all of us awake at night. Okay, but for the majority of the people, they don't have a clue. They don't want to be bothered with it. And here we are. We try to inform. We try to tell people about what's going on. We try to let them know. And we can talk till we're blue in the face. But it's not working. We keep seeing the same shit week after week. I mean, you've been doing it for 17 years, Michael.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Frank and I have been doing things for the Liberty First Foundation since 2018. And And what we've seen, it get worse. It's not getting better. It's getting worse.
I think people are scared. I think that's why. I think they're scared because they think being on TikTok is more important than actually saying, no, I don't agree. I think that's part of it. They're afraid of saying, there's literally been polls that say that progressives and Democrats will not date anyone who doesn't agree 100% that blindly affirm their political talking points coming down from the mainstream media, and people are terrified. My friends might ostracize me. That social media will definitely punish me. They will censor me. People like Senator Blumenthal are actually pushing to create more censorship, just like we saw with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, that they're trying to increase more censorship because a Democrat, a famous, well-known, respected Democrat, dared to walk off the reservation. And because he did that on one issue, he said, I don't agree. They're demonize him and they say he cannot be heard. And people are terrified going, oh my God, if they can do that to RFK, what are they going to do to me? Which should be the exact opposite. We should say, if you try to do that to RFK, then we're going to tear you down. You're going to be gone. Debbie Wasserman Schultz should never be reelected. Why? Because she's trying to silence people from using their First Amendment right. That's, I think, the way we have to give up this fear and we have to step up and go, you can't do that. I mean, we're willing to say it for a song. We're willing to say it for a beer. It's about time we say it for our politics.
Well, sadly, the base for many of these politicians is so ideologically driven that they would rather burn the whole thing down to the ground than stand up for what's right. They think as long as it's right for my party and my ideology, then I'm going to go with it. It does. There's so many people just have given up on their own personal ethics, and so I can't stand for that anymore. I can't stand for it. Surprisingly, there have been a few that have come out and have said, I can't do this. This is ridiculous and everything. And we applaud them. We celebrate them. We support them. Welcome to the real world now. But there are just so many people that are just so ideologically separated. They may throw out 99 things that they think are important because their one pet cause is the thing they concern themselves most about. So they don't care. They'll just go along with it. And the first thing you try to do is censor a censorship meeting. I mean, come on. I mean, take it behind closed doors. You would think there'd be more outcry, but there isn't. There isn't, and it's sad. And that's why when you say, "Oh, we don't deserve this," and then I say, "Yeah, we kind of do."
Well, we do. Okay, honestly, we deserve it because, I mean, again, we'll say it again. You can't have a government of the people, by the people, for the people, without the people being involved.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, like, most of the censorship that they're talking about is all on the internet or in mainstream media. But everything is really driven through the internet anyway. Because you find out everything that you want to find out, and a lot of things you don't want to find out through the internet because you're not going to get it from the mainstream media. We know that.
People are too worried about this.
Right. Well, the reason why they want to censor everything as badly as they do is because the media, the internet exists.
People are too worried about the latest TikTok trend
No, but what I'm saying is, listen, the internet exists.
Yeah.
If the internet did not exist, if when I was in high school and the internet first started, gaining a little bit of traction 30 some odd years ago, if it never did that, if it just stayed, just something that happened between colleges so they could pass records back and forth and all the rest of that, Americans would have absolutely no clue to how corrupt our government is.
See, I disagree with that, Frank. I disagree with that because I know that being in college at the time, I remember when DARPA opened up the internet to the colleges, and it was the first time, and they were starting to use it for information. It's the same thing that we saw with television at first, which was initially meant to educate. It was meant to share information. The core of what it was supposed to be was fantastic. And then came the reality of how it got manipulated, which created this. But one thing I see that was interesting is when the internet first came about, it actually achieved its goal just like TV did. And once they figured out a way to twist it, to push, literally, they shaped the internet so that cat videos became the most popular thing they could put out there. Once they turned TV into entertainment and soap operas to occupy the masses and to distract them, that's when the information died and people became dumb.
Right.
And I saw that in my lifetime.
Right. But my point is, what I was trying to get to was that, yes, the internet was very, very controlled. The information that was on it was very controlled. The people who learned how they could manipulate information and let people only have the information that they wanted to be propagated with the same people that did it with TV, same people that did it with radio. But when it comes to TV and radio, and even print media to a certain extent, you don't have the ability for individuals to get in there and change it and expose it. If you wanted to expose something that was shown on a news program, how could you possibly do it? You can't open up your own news program and offer a counter voice. As soon as they realized that the people had the ability to use the internet for their own benefit and push their own messages out there, that's when they really decided, holy crap, we may have created something here that we can't possibly control, so we need to start censoring the ever-loving crap out of it. It's the internet became the government's worst enemy in the regard that you have hackers, you have people that could get information, you have people that could put out websites, and you can put up websites faster than they could crack down on them. You could do things faster than they could. Everybody has access to it. So the better the tool, the more it needs to be controlled. The internet to government is like guns to government. It's a threat. It's a threat to them. That's why they need to crack down on it every chance they get. That's why they need to have government officials in every one of the online media outlets, because they need to be able to censor it, to control us, to control what we see, what we think, what we say.
Why do you think we've got government departments of misinformation?
Right. And that's
okay. Why do you think misinformation is such a huge topic right now? Okay, it is literally
like what's his face, Kennedy Jr., Robert Kennedy Jr. said, it's not even a matter of the misinformation departments, it's the malinformation departments. Because you can have misinformation and prove that it's false, but you have malinformation, which is true information that happens to fly in the face of the government narrative. So while the information is true, it doesn't speak to the agenda, so it therefore has to be disqualified. They'll first try to list it as misinformation and try to debunk it, disprove it, come out with 1,000 reasons against it. The 56 directors of of our secret national security agenda that say information is true, and when it's not, it's misinformation, but then it's malinformation. The point I was saying is that the internet, if it weren't for the advent of the internet, Americans wouldn't know just how corrupt our government has become, because the internet is the only thing that the citizenry actually has free enough access to, where they can plant those little seeds here and there faster than they can be eradicated. And the truth does get out there. It's just a matter of getting enough people to actually pay attention to it.
Yeah.
I mean, and why have all of these offices? Well, of course, because they want to promote their agenda. And that agenda, you think will change depending upon what administration takes place. But it doesn't. It doesn't change. Because it doesn't matter what the agenda of the administration is, because the agenda of government is to advance itself and control the people, regardless of what politics the person in the office says.
And honestly, okay, if we were allowed to have free, open, honest dialogue, and the internet was allowed to actually work the way it was intended to work, where everybody had a voice, regardless of what that voice was, they were allowed to share whatever information they want, whether it's misinformation or not, okay, because it's on you to determine what information is truthful, okay? Government shouldn't be doing that for you. And it's your responsibility, because if government is the one that's controlling what is true and not true, what is valid and not valid, what is misinformation, what's not misinformation, what is malinformation, what's not malinformation, what's disinformation, and what's not disinformation, then the government controls all the narratives. And if the government controls all the narratives, where does that leave us? Okay, It means that we are fed propaganda, and we are only fed government-approved messages.
Well, I'd like to know where in the Constitution it says anything about the government controlling the information.
It doesn't.
Exactly.
All right. Listen, gentlemen, I'm going to leave you guys a little early tonight. I know we're getting on 2 hours anyway, so we usually should call an end to the show at 11, but we tend to.
Well, we really should only keep it. We should keep it to about an hour, but honestly, there's just too much.
There's too much shit to cover.
Yeah.
If we did three shows a week, then yeah, we could do it to an hour.
I don't even think with 3 shows a week we could keep it under an hour.
No, we couldn't. But I'm keeping it under 2 tonight because I am in so much freaking pain right now. I need to go ice myself down, then heat myself up, and then put myself to sleep. I am.
Well, actually, I'm going to call it an early night this week too, because I've got a lot of work I've got to get done tomorrow. So I've got an early day. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for this week. Remember, everybody, we still have our membership drive is ongoing. Okay, you can find that. Where'd it go? There it is. You can find that here at the link on the screen. Folks, we can only reach so far. Okay, and without your help, either through helping us share what we're talking about, share what we're doing, or by promoting it or by helping us out financially, that will allow us to reach further. Okay, and for those of you that have joined, we appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts. Okay, it shows that we do have some supporters out there. We do need more though. Okay, this is a message that every American needs to hear. Okay, these are conversations that every American needs to be a part of. And the honest truth is, too many of us aren't involved.
I mean, what do I got to do? Get Sally Struthers out here to, do a promo about how 52 cents a day can help destroy your government. Do I need to do that? Do I need to do that?
Let's get
There's
some.
a child in America starving for the proper information and freedom. We need to bring that message to the masses. We gotta get people educated.
You know what? Let's pay for some chick in a bikini to do that, and I guarantee you, people will show it.
Yeah, but we really have to be careful who we get because you never know these days.
You could be in the bikini. I don't care.
Yeah, I could be in a bikini, but nobody wants to see that.
No. Hey, they don't want to see that with me either.
I'm not wearing a bikini. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, but Mike, Vas, you're probably the sveltest among us, so you could probably pull it off a little easier than we do.
Now, I heard Michael was going to come on in the Speedo one night.
You know what? I am more than confident in my wonderful manly physique, but I ain't doing it.
Well, I'm not saying I don't have the legs for it. I do. I have great legs, but it's the whole section between the face and the legs that sort of. From the waist down, I got Schwarzenegger legs. From the midsection, I'm a Teletubby. So I don't need that. But yeah, listen, if you guys can help us out, please do so. And helping us out could just be, sharing our link, spreading the word. Just help us attract a little bit more of an audience. We got big things that are coming up, but we can't put them into motion unless we have the support to do it with. We have some giveaways coming up too, by the way. Some giveaways are going to be coming up, and we want to make sure to not only spread the message, but spread a little love with everybody. Because and when it comes down to it, our program, our organization, that's probably the one word we don't ever really use enough is love. We do what we do because we absolutely love our country.
Mm-hmm.
We love our freedom. We love our rights. We love our fellow citizens. We love to be able to bring information, to have a spirited debate, to have conversations. Because if you don't love what you do, then you don't do it with everything that you have inside you. And we do it with every ounce of ourselves. And we love you guys for joining us. We love you guys for helping us. And we just, that's what it's about. If we don't have a love of country, we don't have a love of tomorrow, then what the hell is the sense of living for today?
Well,
Sure.
Behind the scenes, we get to see our average viewers while we're on air. Okay. And some weeks we see that number pop up to 10. That's not enough, folks. I want to see that number raising quite a bit. We need to get the word out.
We do get a lot of people review the broadcast because not everybody can join us on Friday night at 9:00. A lot of people have family commitments, have jobs and stuff like that. And it's Friday night, it's party night. Who wants to sit around and listen to these three old bastards yammer on all night long? So part of it is our own problem. We got to come out with a drive time show that we can do so people can listen to us.
Well, on the West Coast, it is drive time.
Yeah, well, we can piss those people off as they're driving.
Yeah.
But even if you watch the rebroadcast, copy the links down on any of our sites and share the link around. Let people watch the show after the fact. We'll know what you're there. We'll still get the commentary. We just won't be able to respond to it immediately. But if you do feel so inclined, we do have the ability to take phone calls here at the Weekly Roundtable. And the phone number does pop up on the screen every now and then. And oddly enough, it's my personal phone number. So you could actually call me when you want to and harass the living crap out of me. Somebody did it 3:45 in the morning. But this morning, I don't know who it was. Somebody called me at 3:45 in the morning.
It weren't me. I was asleep.
I don't know. It was a North Carolina number, so I think somebody probably just butt dialed me by accident. Not sure. But listen, I'm gonna bow out. You guys be safe. Shoot straight. We love you. We'll catch you guys next week. Jan, we have a special gift for you next week. I will be bringing it to the program next week and trying it out live so that next time you join us on the program, you'll have a better time. So
Yeah.
with that, I'm going to skedaddle. Vass, Mike, love you guys. Be safe. Have a great night. Everybody, God bless America.
Love you, bro. See you next week.
Take care, guys.